There are many things we cannot explain about existence. It is an experience to be lived, and we experience it subjectively. The reach of subjective stops at the barrier of our skin. We cannot feel with our senses what other human beings and other living entities are feeling. We can surely empathize and project those experiences in our consciousness, but it becomes secondhand and it is subject to the wavering hand of our own imagination. There is a subconscious struggle in which we are not satisfied with the experience of life, and we are constantly seeking more than what we know and have. This seeking could either be a physical object or a mental experience. When what we seek does not fit into either of these categories, we label it a spiritual experience. The common thread that connects the physical, mental, and the spiritual is the process of seeking. Our senses have evolved to match conditions that support life here on Earth. They are primarily meant for survival and to a lesser extent as a conduit bringing in outer experiences for the curious mind to play with. Life is an ongoing phenomenon. We cannot get ahead or behind it. If we are satisfied with our subjective experience of life, it is easy to enjoy the warmth of poetic and metaphorical descriptions of life. That may not explain the source of life, but it opens our awareness to the possibility of something grander than our limited existence. When we embark on the search for more than just a subjective experience of the present, such as an objective and rational understanding of secrets of life, we must be prepared for a long and cold road ahead. The journey cannot stop until an absolute answer is found. So far, we have not found that answer. Each individual's quest is a quest of humanity. We see ourselves as separate, but the consciousness of one is the consciousness of all. We may assign a name for the physical body as a distinct identifier. We can even label our mental thought patterns as Eastern or Western way of life, or that of a scientist or a religious person. But we cannot label consciousness. It is there in all, and it is beyond the reach of the individual mind. Some may call it the unexplainable. Science is exacting in its approach to explain the unexplainable. A mile for one person is the same as a mile for another person. We cannot increase or decrease the length of a mile based on personal preference. It is only the cold, hard, objective truth which is reproducible. And for those who see this exacting approach as too restricting, they may find answers in religion with regards to what cannot be easily explained. There is much more leeway. Many of the religious descriptions are poetic, which are subject to a wide variety of interpretations. This is one of the fundamental points on which the two, science and religion, differ. Both science and religion start with an idea. In science, ideas evolve and change as more information comes in. In religion, the original ideas that may have formed the seeds of religious dogma remain fixed. With the passage of time, they may get more entrenched in the minds of people. Science is like a flexible stick that bends and breaks easily, and religion is like a rigid stick that does not bend or break easily. But they are both sticks, flexible or rigid. Scientists take an idea, deliberately tear it apart, look at it from multiple angles, and prove it over and over again from multiple sources before relegating it to a scientific fact. The religious take an idea, guard and worship it, prevent any attempts to discredit those ideas, and store their findings in the safe house of religious dogma. But neither the scientists nor the religious can escape the fact that they are dependent on ideas and hence the mind. When there is something that cannot be explained easily, these two groups, the scientists and the religious, jump into the fray. The scientists start with a question and attempt to derive an answer. The religious start with the answer, which they use to address all questions. Scientists stick to their methodology and are proud of it. The religious cling to their ideology, and since they're not supposed to exhibit pride, that pride is shifted onto their overseer. Since science and religion start with an idea, it can be said that both use the mind primarily to explain their respective positions. The scientists use the mind as a screen to reflect and entertain ideas and project interpretations of objective inference. Religious ideas are propagated through consensus, and the burden of proof is self-terminated. Neither can look the other in the eye. They are like our two eyes. Our eyes can see everything around us, but not each other. The religious don't give up their ideas, and the scientists are not ready to give up their methods. There isn't an agreement between the two on almost all points of contention. When one says it is, the other says it is not. This division, which creates the mutually exclusive groups of the religious and the scientists, is a symptom of what happens internally in each and every one of us. There is a fundamental division that happens in the mind, us versus them. The mind has gained strength over thousands of years of human evolution. Just as exercise strengthens muscles, we can think of conflict and fighting as strengthening the mind. We know from scientific research that the mind can influence our DNA. In one study, they found that mindfulness meditation prevented the deterioration of telomeres. Telomeres are like caps on the ends of our chromosomes. And chromosomes are carriers of our genetic information in the form of our genes. Telomeres deteriorate with age and are associated with diabetes, cancer, stress, and other chronic conditions. If the mind can influence DNA, can the DNA influence the mind? This becomes relevant in the context of events influencing our DNA. Recently, scientists are discovering that African elephants are evolving to lose their tusks in response to thousands of years of poaching which have decimated their populations. Humans have lived through external conflict for thousands of years. Could this have had an effect on human DNA and in turn influenced the mind? After all, the mind is a hotbed of conflict. Even though we may not be in conflict with others, we may still be in conflict within our own self. This conflict is expressed in our likes and dislikes, which is in everyone's experience. Internal conflict can also stem from being conditioned to our beliefs. When the word belief is uttered, we immediately think of religion. This is a great example of conditioning. We come to a quick conclusion, and the conclusion is judged through the lens of our likes and dislikes. A form of conditioning and belief that is common to many is the belief that we are good. Religious people almost always consider themselves as good people. Once we come to this conclusion, we judge others through the lens of conditioning and label others as good or bad. If we are not conditioned to opine about ourselves as good or bad and are able to remain neutral, it becomes very hard to come to any judgment about others, and there is no reference for comparison. This is the beginning of the end of mental conditioning, which is having no opinion of ourselves, such as I am or I am not this or that. Consequently, division in the mind and as an extension, external division will end. Just as our two eyes give us one image in the mind, it may be time for scientists and religions to sit together and talk not from adversarial positions, but from a viewpoint that no matter whether we're scientists or the religious, we all share the same mysterious experiences of birth and death. In between the two, differences have unfortunately come about. Methodology is a religion of science, and ideology is a science of religion. When beliefs and methods are put aside, we are simply human beings. To be a human being requires neither a belief nor a method. We just have to be aware. This awareness is taking one step away from any thought or idea that pops up in the mind. Only with awareness can we carve out an inner pocket of objectivity within the inner subjective world. In that pocket of objectivity, observing thoughts as a detached witness may eventually lead us to an experiential understanding of who we are, answers to which have eluded both the scientists and the religious.